Good morning guys, it is vlog day. To be honest with you, it's been a while, not for any particular reason apart from it's been extremely humid and hot, so that sort of kind of stopped me going out during the week doing the usual urbex and stuff, because the sort of places that you find, they're run down, they got an awful smell to them, they get sticky and horrible. So we've left that one out. Weekends we've been doing other bits which have not been enabling us to vlog them themselves, because photography or doing videos was not accepted where we was going. So this has been the first opportunity in probably a couple of weeks, and we find ourselves back at a true gem of a place here in Milton Keynes. This is Milton Keynes Museum. Outside of London itself, it's probably in the top 5 throughout the UK, and it's interactive. So whereas a normal museum you get things behind the case and you can't see them, here you can grab hold of them, touch them, play with them, see what they used to do, and there's people on site which will explain the process of things. And there's a lot of things in here, sort of old terms of put a sock in it, with things like the gramophones etc. in there. They show you how they work. There's even people cooking toast on the old stoves etc, and the old Victorian shop way. So without further ado, let's go and explore this place. It's pretty strange when we're actually landlocked that we have a huge boat here that was probably made either Stony or Wolverton back in the day. Environment Agency. There's probably a plaque around here for something, an old steam locomotive, and there is of course the big old train at the entrance which used to stand at the front of Milton Keynes station where they filmed Superman 4, was it? The Quest for Peace, I believe it was. Yeah, it just seems strange in a landlocked part of the world they made a boatyard. Stony Stratford. These are your admission prices. The good thing is they give you one of these tickets and you can come time and time again throughout your year. This place is set out over several buildings. You got old wells, all that area over there is your old communication, satellite, phones etc. And it's sort of remarkable going back in time and looking at what you used to have, your old Nokia 3310 etc. And you've got an area over here, there's an old print store over here, cafeteria to your right. These are all pump houses and stations from yesteryear, and there's a plethora of ploughs, and of course as you just come in the view here with a tree, the original infamous Milton Keynes concrete cows. Just gonna have a look. Sometimes there's an area over here which is open, they've been doing it up, so I'm not sure. The transport hub is over there, and you've got some of the old horse and carriages, the old train stuff, a lot of stuff from Wolverton Works. And the main attraction here is the big house itself, when you've got all the different sort of rooms, dining room areas, music rooms, toy room etc. Then you get to that Victorian street which you'll see on the video, and you go into all these little shops, and you can still go into the post office and purchase sweets. I think it's £1 a bag. So this is synonymous with the industry that Milton Keynes used to have, your old Wolverton Works. And here you go in the Hall of Transport. Your terminology, a sedan car, that's where it originated from back in the day. Plenty of old canal stuff, because of course we've got the Grand Union Canal that runs parallel with Bletchley and Milton Keynes, and that goes on to of course Stoke Bruin. Not going fully in it even though I can, but this is your old gypsy style caravan. Got an old rustic smell to it. For years this has been a restoration project, it never seems to get any further along. I guess the problem you've got with anything like this, I remember myself when I owned an American vehicle, the old mystery machine, sourcing the parts when they go wrong is virtually impossible. And of course you've got the old garage split for the time of bicycles. These are hugely collectible nowadays, the old Castrol tankards, little tubs of grease, etc. Sort of place my dad would have had a field day with back in the past. Always whittling away at something. Look at them old spark plugs. The amount of those I used to go through when I was racing motocross. Either Champion or NGK. Wow. That is serious old, that fire extinguisher. SO and Pratt's, there's certainly been a few of those about recently. Right, so the old getting your oil back in the day would be held in here. You put your canister under and pump and fill it from there. And that's BP, wow. (1944) milk float. This thing from back in the day. Of course, you remember everyone used to have their milk delivered in their little glass bottles. 9 times out of 10 you get it, and the other time you turn up, wake up in the morning, you would have heard the bottle being delivered. You go out and find that some bugger up the streets nick your bottle. Tickford engines, synonymous with the old Aston Martin, which is obviously Newport Pagnell. Obviously a lot of these racing engines come in handy with Silverstone being on our doorstep. An interesting fact for you is that it probably shows it here, the original diesel engine was built just off Victoria Street in Fenny Stratford. To be honest with you guys, I'm actually shocked at how quiet it is today. There was probably around half a dozen people have parked up, but this place is sort of hit or miss. You can turn up here and it can be absolutely heaving, or you can turn up and it can be quiet like today. Now this would have come from your bathhouse, which was in Milton, next to where the Tesco's now stands. It's still got these signs up, etc. But people back in the day didn't have the bathing facilities, so they'd get in, pay, get a ticket, they'd go to a room like this, have a bar of soap, go in your old tub that looks really grimy and horrible, to be honest with you, have a soak, and that's how they used to wash for the week. The old locomotion engines. Do love this old model railway set. If anyone ever gets the chance to go to Bescot, which I believe is near, is it Slough sort of area? We went last year. The oldest model village in the world, and it is absolutely stunning and beautiful. Good day out, really is. A lot of your old Harry Potter style train carriages. This is obviously pre my time. Yeah, I know I am old, but yeah, the ones that I remember, I do remember the doors locking and opening like that, but it was like a carriage, very much as I said, like Harry Potter. You'd have the bit and you'd have the walkway down the side. He's spending a lot of time doing these up. Even these little models are worth an absolute fortune, should I say. And a lot of this stuff gets donated here. Private collections. People can't house them anymore and they donate them here. This is something you don't see every day. This is your old original tram. The size of the thing is absolutely enormous. The station went from Wolverton, I believe, into Stoney. Not 100% sure about that. There's no real sign of the tracks anymore. Obviously Wolverton Works is now derelict towards the back end, but that's what it would have looked like back in the day. But it is severely dangerous, all the asbestos and the glass falling from the ceiling now. Being an urbexer, I've thought about getting in, but it's one of them things, it's even too dangerous for myself. Some of your old bikes. For myself, I remember I had a grifter, a chopper, and obviously a racer. Any sort of stuff that was heavily about in the 80s. I had a Diamondback and a Mongoose as well. A few old bikes of Trikes, penny farthing there in the corner. How on earth you'd get on that thing, God only knows. These are one of those failed enterprises from the 1980s. Highly collectible now. And probably worth a few bob, but the old Sinclair C5. I think it's because they were so low to the ground, and I think there was a few tragic accidents where they ended up beneath a car. Now rules are so strict on things, yet you still get the Herberts about on their trikes and their electric bikes, etc., causing havoc. These things, I think they would do about 25 miles an hour. This will end in disaster, but we got a free little crazy Golf. I think the clubs are a bit on the short side, but we'll give it a go anyway. You can try and get all in one, are you?
Yeah, which one are we doing?
All of them. Well, we're calling it a draw. It wasted 5 or 10 minutes. Good for the kids, I guess. Start off with the old toy room before we head into the Victorian arcade. We sort of bypass the music room and the visual room with the stereoscopes, etc. I sort of turned around and thought to myself, try and remember 5 things from my past that I loved. So that would be the old football game called Super Striker, that'd be one. Meccano, Action Man stroke the $6 Million Man. Which I dare say they've got some about in here. Obviously your old grandstand stuff. Did you used to have that, did you?
I had a Girls World.
Yeah.
I had Frustration.
Oh, I do like Frustration, yeah.
Punk.
These various guises.
And hungry hippos over the other side.
Hungry. Of course it would be complete without Scooby-Doo. The old speaking spell, always remember that. I don't know whether that's actual size, but you've got one at the ET ride at Universal Studios. It's a lot bigger than that. Yeah. Never had hungry hippos.
We did. We had hungry hippos.
There's a large one up the city centre that you can actually sit on. They're like little excavators with, I think the balls are like beach ball size. The old Subbuteo team's there. There's actually my team there as well. So someone who had the Subbuteo set actually themselves supported Watford. For my sins I do as well. That marionette is more scary than it is playful. And remember in our household there was always an old kiddie's telephone line around that my sister used to play with. Never had any of this lot, I can't remember my sister having that sort of stuff. She had the little kitchenette things. I think everyone back in the day had them, although ours back in the day would have been a 2p piece, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I had a friend who had that till.
Yeah, I think we had a bigger one. Slightly bigger till than that. Not we, it was my sister that had it. What I'd need a till for, God only knows.
But
yeah, the old Sega, Rachel's favourite game of all time was
Spot.
And I went and sold the console before you finished it. Had a Game Boy.
Yeah.
Various toy planes and what have you over the years. Sort of thing you'd find more in a school than a home, I guess. And the thing is, if you bring your kids along to this, they can sit on the rocking horse and play with all these things that are laying around. If it's not in a cabinet, you can pick it up and see how it worked. Where we are now, where this museum is situated, that's what it used to be. This place was Stacey Hill Farm. In the old Victorian street era now. One thing I never knew they'd done little shoes for horses, or donkeys or mules, or whatever they would have been. Never seen them before. This is of course a old cobbler store. Now of course nowadays they don't just do shoes, they cut keys and all sorts. And I think it must have died a death really years and years ago. I know they're still going, but I've never had a pair of boots or shoes resold. You just simply go out and buy another pair. I suppose the thing is we live in a throwaway society nowadays. I know me nan and me granddad and me other nan, they would always get stuff resold, and even me mum occasionally. But it really is a bygone era. Done an urbex recently. Instead of that being an actual electric lamp, it was an old oil lamp sitting in an abandoned property on the A421 between Bletchley and Buckingham. Get that smell of, is it linseed oil when you walk in here? The old jars and bottles and how they used to weigh a baby. This is back in the day when you'd get Lucozade in a glass bottle wrapped in that orange tissue paper, and you think like an elixir it would solve all ills. Sort of these go back to the time of leeches, etc. I was just looking at the names on the bottles and wondering what would correspond with it nowadays.
Smells like.
Inside the old store with the old soaps and your cigarettes, tins of chocolate as opposed to bars of chocolate you'd get nowadays. I don't even know when the first bars come out. I know you go to the old saying that your parents used to say, oh, you used to be able to get a pair of jeans and a Mars bar and go out to the cinema, etc. for £1. A lot of these things back in the day before we had a clean out, we had all the old flavourings which were very much reminiscent of them bottles there. Never had any of these metal OXO cube tins. I think everyone probably at some point had a little pot of mustard lying around. The phones you're hearing, when you're in here, you can phone each other's stores and speak to someone the other end. They're old butter paddles, very small, but Ovaltine, yeah, I can take it or leave it. You've got a jar lying around, you have one drink of it to reminisce of the old days. I think, yeah, that's not much cop, and put it to one side. I don't know whether this is just display or whether you used to buy biscuits like that. Someone will know out there. If you ever did, just go into a store and say, I'll have a load of basically nice biscuits or shortcake, etc., and you bought them individually, let us know in the comments, because I've never really seen anything like that. Obviously it's there for a purpose. Maybe it's just the way things were back in the day. Yeah, it really has got some sturdy weight to it. How you measure things. Look at that, the old milk tray box. And then, for those of you who do have a habit, here's your old cigarette packets, and can't see what my granddad would have had. He would have had a Golden Virginia tin. Very reminiscent of those. And then before then, I know my granddad had a load of old pipes as well. Old pipe smoking tobacco. Hacks. Rachel's currently in there ordering sweets, so you get them by the quarter, 4 ounces. It used to be £1 a bag, it's now £1.20. It's still very cheap, and it's all the old-fashionedness of getting yourself a packet of sweets in the traditional way, where they weigh them out. Really is cool. There you go.
Like everything else, everything goes up, doesn't it? Trouble is, people that ask for more money in their wages, but what they realise is, every time they ask for more money, someone's got to pay for that.
You never actually knew that the old love hearts were that old, that you would have had them in one of these machines. Obviously I remember the old chewing gum ones and the small little Cadbury's bar ones that you had at the old tube stations years ago. Polo. Some of these old tins. That's Co-op. That's old Co-op. That is CWS. And we look at the old butcher's store. Look at that. Faggots, pheasants, rabbits, all things of the past. Pretty squeamish, to be honest with you. I suppose the meals that I predominantly have now would be, Rachel's not really a hot curry, but we'd have a chicken korma. I prefer chicken tikka masala, spaghetti bolognese. We do like our Chinese classic roast dinner, whether that be chicken, beef. We do love lamb, but it's got so expensive. One thing I've never liked, I'm now 53, I think in my lifetime I've had maybe 5 eggs. Apart from if it's in egg fried rice, I just do not like them. I think my nose, the smell of things like fish and egg, I don't eat them because I don't like the smell. The old trotters, etc. Really nasty looking stuff back in the day, to be honest with you. And of course this place does look like a torture room, with all the saws and the axes and choppers. Going to the old hardware store. It's even got that old mothly, oiled smell, if anyone remembers pollards. The old pollards, not the new sort of imitation version in Fenny Stratford. You'd go in, you were short, a washer had broken, or you needed something, and they would have it all at hand. I say this every time I come in here. That old sketch, not quite, the old fork handles, or handles for forks. Very old till. You find a lot of these when you're doing the old urbex as well. These are your old gin traps or rat traps. You'd squeeze that together. These clamps would open wide up. You put a bit of cheese or whatever on there. Mr. Rat or Mouse would come along, chew at that. They would clamp, and that is the end of him. The old brass at the top there, waxes, etc. Everyone's probably still got something in the garage or a shed that they've not touched for probably a couple of decades. And the old brown jacket, synonymous with your hardware store. There is an urbex that I've got to do pretty soon, and there's a smaller version of one of these engines here in an old pump house. Tiny little thing, I think it's across the engine, but it's still sat there rusting away. Because these are the sort of things you'd have when you didn't have mains water. You'd have a well and you'd have to pump the water about somehow. Just seen that that's an old clocking in machine. So years ago, nowadays if you've got any sort of swiping and you just swipe it on a terminal, and the terminal man say you're swiping for lunch, swiping in, before the sort of thing we used to have at Tesco's, but going back well before then, I remember when I was in the print, you'd have a little card, a brown card with certain days, you put it in there, you stamp a hole, and at the end of the week they'd work out what days you'd been in, when you stopped, whether you'd done any overtime, etc. And then you'd get your pay in a little brown package, all in cash, weekly. Wow, that is some years ago. All the old amps and fuses, a lot of it made from Bakelite. These things would short out and not take out only your house but the whole street. Of course, I have to go into the cinema exhibition room area. We do frequent the cinema probably maybe at least 3 times out of 4 to 5 weeks in a month. Things, people that have actually got into the point, I've seen some of these old, more modern than this of course, but some of the old cameras, projectors still in the rooms, just sitting there obsolete. I believe it might have had a fire the other day, but I don't know whatever's going to happen to it. I dare say they will knock it down at some point. Some of the old handhelds. I remember years and years ago, before they were even a thing, I wanted one of those because you used to see them on telly. You think, oh, I have one of these cameras. but the price would be extortionate. So for me, my original cinema would have been Bletchley. Bletchley itself, it had it's never had a premiere, but I remember when they used to have films that were called blockbusters back in the day, and they literally were. You'd queue around the block. I queued around the block for Jaws, and what else was it? Grease, amongst others. And that was our cinema there. So if you know it at all, I don't know what that area now is, like a business area, and Captain Ridley's would sit about here, which is the Wetherspoons. Got an old tailor store there, and then across here there's a milliner's, a lady in there with her needles, very, very highly skilled. The old dentist store at the back there. Pretty scary back in the day. I think it's more the noise than anything else, them drills.
Let's go back down the road.
Into the old farming area now, which of course before Milton Keynes became a city, before it became a town, like pretty much everywhere, it's just fields, farming area. And so a lot of this was left around, this community's got left behind. Room at the back here with a lot of old presses in. Dean's Hanger and Stony Stratford Ironworks. Must have been a bygone era, that's for sure. I'd certainly never heard of them. But just looking at the period dress, if that is right as well, you're turning around and saying maybe 18th century. Old little piggy wire. I do remember the old Busby, and I think I probably vaguely remember an advert from maybe the late 70s. There's a very old phone box. Make someone happy with a phone call. Well, nowadays it would probably be a text message. Into age of transmitters and telephone exchanges, the old teleprinter. It's all about how we used to signal and communicate years ago, whether it be through flame, sound, Obviously your beacons that are back in the day. That actually works pretty well on camera, that does. Our carrier pigeons up there. That thing spells out something weird every single time. I don't know what it is about it, but you can never make head or tail of it. Continue with communications and the old telephone systems. Next to that old wireless there. Obviously goes way back before that. We've got SOS signals, Morse code, etc. This just shows you the cabling, how things have changed. We're now more fibre optic, but before then it was lead, plastic, copper, field surface radios, of course the old style telephone that you would have had in the box, and a police box there, synonymous with a certain Doctor Who. That is an actual one, what they were there for. And you can even ring. I'm not going all the way in. That's what it would have been like inside. Not so much a TARDIS. These all predate anything that I remember. That's sort of more the era I started to remember. Used to do your dial, and then it went to push button after that.
In the post office, you write your telegram message out, you pop it in the tube, hold the tube at the bottom, and put it underneath there.
It's that quick that it's all gone round.
The teleprinter office.
Okay.
And the operator would read the message, dial up wherever it's going to go to, type out the happy birthday or whatever. That comes out the paper.
And all that, in literally seconds, it travelled the whole way around this.
And then you send it back. So you send it back. So if I open that up, because the customer's still waiting. The customer's still there, so they can get confirmation of the message.
These old switchboards. Some of your novelty answer phones. We had kind of like a Winnie the Pooh one that's in the front room, and we had a Scooby-Doo one which is still boxed up. And we go back through the era of what we see as mobile phones today were nothing like that when they first started out. Somewhere around the era there is what I had, which ended up in the harbour at Megavissy. Is it Megavissy or Mevagissy?
Mevagissy.
Mevagissy. I just reached out and turned around and pointed in the direction, it fell out my pocket, dropped in the harbour and turned itself on, and didn't we laugh about that?
Oh, didn't we just?
And then of course the Nokia 3310, synonymous with all you could do is play Snake on it and just sort of get dial codes that were loud and obnoxious to everybody around you.
You are now to hear a short test of the warning signal.
These are the last of the era of the old payphones, which would have been going over the card pretty much. The old Mercury card. I can't remember if it was Mercury or not. You used to have little, looked like a credit card. You'd stick them in. They were just a throwaway commodity. But you had maybe 20 units or whatever. I think they would pay £2 to £4 at a time. Load them up, use them, and discard them. It looks like Rachel has gained a bit of shelter. Rachel is actually ringing me from another phone box. Hello? Yeah, it is dry in here. Right, anyway, let's go and have some food. Walking into an old parlour pantry area. And although, yes, I know these are fake, that actually does work and you can cook on it. Because they've had days when they've had open exhibitions and they go back to Victorian era. And they come along and they actually cook in here. The old carpet beaters. Everything's very reminiscent to the old camping style tins. Again, old scales. And this room here, I've always turned around and said is very Jack the Ripper, because there is a Ripper museum in East London. And one of his last victims is laid out in a bed like this with it all splattered with blood, etc. But that's basically a bedroom of what they would have been like. So of that era, if you're thinking, what do these people live like? Around the time of Jack the Ripper, it was exactly like this. Even had to heat up tongs on a stove just to do your hair. Right, well, we're nearly done because it's specifically empty here today, which is unusual, it being a school holiday. I just wanted to walk round to one specific thing in this garden, which is usually hidden over the back, and that is of course an old Anderson shelter from the old Blitz and World War II. Just shows you how people used to survive then. They used to turn up their old gardens to grow their own crops. They had little choice. Everything was rationed. And here is your said Anderson shelter. One of Mount Urbex, and I see a lot of what they call stand-in shelters, which is more the industrial version of these. They can be up to 20 feet long, usually made of iron and concrete, but these come in a pack given to most households, and people dig down into their garden and put this canopy embedded within it, and this is where you would hunker down when the rockets would come over and the bombers, and you'd hunker down in here. Must have been terrifying. survive the night. Anyway guys, that's going to do it for today's vlog. It was something nice and simple to get me back in the swing of doing these things. When you're out of the loop for maybe a couple of weeks because of weather, or you can't film or video for whatever reason, you sort of lose that edge. So I'll bide me time, I'll get back into it. But it's a start, and that's the main thing. And with that guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll see you in the movies. Bye for now.